The title of my speech today is How I Become an Influencer Without Trying to Make an Influence. My psychology professor once told me an important lesson she learned when she first became a psychology counselor. She had a patient who came to her therapy for the first time, and she could diagnose that the patient had an anxiety disorder. So she told her patient her diagnosis and gave him some advice, ensuring that he will feel better soon. They scheduled their next appointment. However, the patient never showed up. My professor was very upset because she thought she could cure the patient, but she didn't manage to do so. As she received more patients, she gradually realized that to be a good psychology counselor, the first step is not trying to solve your patient's problems or giving any advice, but listening to them. Actively listening to their struggles, understanding what they feel, and being empathetic are more important than the idea of trying to cure them. It's a similar thing to being an influencer. Yes, it is indeed important for an influencer to make an influence. But before someone becomes an influencer, an empathetic heart and the passion to say something are more critical than the result of making changes. In 2017, I made a 75-minute film Escape, a story about the self-acceptance journey of a transgender teenager. The film received much media attention, and the behind-the-scenes stories was reported in many major newspapers and magazines like New York Times and Forbes. I was really excited that many people got to watch my film, and some even changed their attitudes towards transgender people because of my film. I was called an influencer in some articles, and at that time I thought I liked it. Then I started my college life at UCLA, studying psychology and minoring in film. I planned to make more films during college. However, I didn't finish a single script or direct any film for 3 years. I still loved filmmaking and wanted to write and direct something, but I ended up not managing to do so. I was very puzzled and frustrated by then. Is this my bottleneck period, or is there something wrong with me? It was not until I made Scarlet and The Old Swan in 2021 that I realized what hindered my creation was my idea of trying to make an influential film. In the past 3 years, I was expecting myself to make a film as influential as or even more influential than Escape. I trapped myself in this vicious cycle where the more I thought about making an impact, the less I was able to focus on my creation. When I put my efforts into pursuing an influential result, I lost my original aspiration in filmmaking, which was to tell a good story. Looking back at the making of Escape, I didn't expect the film to be so popular at all in the first place. All I did was focus on what I wanted to express in the film. That was when I was at the closest to my true heart. My true heart was I had something to say, and I wanted to tell it through film. Now let me share with you a story about how a film changed a country's law. Korean film Silenced tells a tragic story that a new teacher discovers the secret in a primary school for the deaf, that the children have been subjected to long-term sexual abuse by the school principal and staff. The filmmakers chose the angle to focus on how the new teacher tried to help the children prosecute the principal, but the principal uses his power and legal loopholes to cover up the truth. What's more depressing than the film itself is the story is based on a true crime in South Korea. And the principal returned to the primary school after only 1 year in prison and continued teaching. The writer of Silenced said she could not help trembling when she first read about the crime in the newspaper. She immediately knew she had something to say, and she put away all her other work to fully devote her time to the research of the crime. She was traumatized during the research, but she insisted because of her pursuit of truth and goodness. She believed that it was not our responsibility to have disasters happen, but it is our responsibility to always make the criminals punished. The story she wrote was so touching that the film created a huge emotional stir in South Korea society. It soon pushed for the change of the law to increase the sentences for sexual abusers. Millions of people signed up to push for the reopening of the case, and finally, the school principal was commuted to 12 years in prison. This is the power of storytelling, but also the power of following one's true faith. When we stay true to our hearts and focus on doing what we really care about, changes will happen naturally. The days after I finished Scarlet and the Old Swan were rather peaceful and calm. Unlike the summer I finished Escape, when my time was filled up with many media interviews. One day, however, someone added me on WeChat who was going to be my classmate at USC film production program. And to my surprise, she had watched all my films. She told me she got a lot of inspiration and encouragement from my stories, and for her first time, she realized that she was able to shoot the stories she wanted to tell. So that was why she is here now, studying filmmaking. I will conclude my speech with a line from the film Silenced. We fight all the way, not to change the world, but to not let the world change us. Thank you so much.